Hello and welcome to Charging Status, the EV focused podcast brought to you from the Interface. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Jim Starling. How are we doing, Jim?
Good, Alex. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Yeah, pretty good. I've had quite a busy week so far, but yeah, it's all good. How's things with you?
Yeah, equally busy. I'm off to Geneva on Sunday,
and
I'm sort of trying to get ahead of myself a bit. And I've had so much stuff to film, and it's been outdoor stuff, which, you know, I don't always do. Lots of outdoor stuff, and the weather's been atrocious. So today, I'm doing this, and I'm trying to film 3 other videos, which is interesting when I hear about all these YouTubers leaving YouTube because, you know, they find one video a week far too difficult to put out. And, you know, I've got to do 3 in a day, and 4 if you include this, and I'm filming them, editing them, trying to think of things to say and looking handsome all at the same time. It's difficult.
Yeah, you sort of enthusiasm sort of drops a little bit sometimes. I've noticed when I've tried to film a lot in one day, it just I'm not sure how some people get so much filmed in one day, especially if you're trying to film on a time constraint. It's just don't know, it's crazy. Yeah, I got a car. I had a Honda HR-V the other week. I managed to get stuck on my field, so it was nice.
Oh no, that's not ideal.
No, I pull into a bit of grass to film, and then suddenly I was like, oh, I'm not moving. And then
did you have to pull it out with a tractor or something?
Yeah, got it out in the end, but yeah. Got it.
Funnily enough, I've got the CR-V this week, which is one of the videos I'm filming today.
Oh yeah,
it's the CR-V review. So
very nice.
Yeah,
lovely stuff. Just some little follow-ups. On Sunday, we did a Definitely Not a Guru channel meetup. There's about 3 of us there, I think. I think you said there was going to be more people, but
300.
300, yeah.
Well, you arrived just after the Swedish beach volleyball team, the female Swedish beach volleyball team had left.
Oh, they were interesting, actually, yeah.
I had to do all sorts of autographs, and luckily, you know, I had some personal protection there, or I think they would have mauled me to death. But yeah, and then a few blokes turned up. So no, it was really good fun though, actually, wasn't it? I think it was probably better for the fact that a lot of people that were supposed to be coming didn't turn up, because, you know, everyone can just sort of join in the same conversation rather than having lots of little conversations going on all over the place.
Yeah, it's quite nice. And then I, as I was down that neck of the woods, I sort of had a drive by the new cafe machine they've got opening at some point this spring. Looks quite good, actually. It's quite a nice, very quiet location next to a petrol station, but the whole is similar to the Stratford one. It's very in the middle of nowhere, nice and quiet. I think they'll do well with that one when it opens at some point in spring, so it'll be quite nice.
Have they got plenty of parking?
It looks pretty big, to be honest, yeah. Even the one near Milton Keynes has got loads and loads of parking. So it's good that they're focusing on that because, it's important, obviously, because they'll just get people turned away otherwise. So
yeah, it's quite a good way to sort of repurpose these old pubs, isn't it?
It's fantastic,
you know,
yeah. Because there's so many just near me that are closed. It's just, they just don't exist anymore. And if Cafe Machine have got the budget or whatever they're doing behind the scenes to finance all this, it must be quite expensive. But just repurposing these old pubs that keeping the same names and using the names similarly, it's quite nice. So
yeah,
good way to get the motoring community back into it. So,
did you go on anywhere else after that?
There's like no, not really. No.
Oh, okay.
No, we went to get some lunch and then went home. So it's about 2.5 hours. So not too bad.
Yeah, it's a fair stretch, isn't it?
Yeah. You did an episode by yourself with, I can't remember the guy's name actually, but it was Teltonica. It was quite nice.
Yeah.
Quite a nice episode.
Yeah, that was quite an interesting one. So they sort of got in touch and sort of had the opportunity to do something. And I thought, actually, it sits more nicely as a podcast than it does probably just a normal video on my channel. So we did that as a podcast. Obviously, the video of that I put on my channel.
Yeah.
But it's quite an interesting conversation and really good to sort of meet someone sort of behind the scenes from one of these companies, because at the end of the day, a wall box is a fairly kind of nondescript thing that people. Some people will actually take some time and choose their wall box. Some people just sort of have installed whatever is suggested to them and they don't think past it. And I must admit, once the thing's actually on your wall, how much time you spend doing anything with it, or thinking about it to any degree, is fairly remote, certainly in my experience. So to actually hear about sort of the manufacturing process, some of the challenges, what's going on in other parts of Europe and stuff, yeah, I thought it was a good chat.
Yeah, it's a good episode. We might try and do some more of those. I've got some people that potential episodes that we might just use them as charging status, one-off episodes. I think it'd be quite good. Sort of like an EV hub of information would be quite nice, I think.
It would be much easier, by the way, to get more content onto the channel, onto the podcast. If you lovely people go and leave us a review wherever it may be. We desperately need your reviews, because we are trying to grow this podcast, and at the moment it's really tricky because the various algorithms on all the different podcast platforms and YouTube and everything else don't really kick in unless you get engagement from the audience. So please, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube right now, please follow, subscribe, leave likes, feedback, star ratings, whatever it is on that particular platform. We massively appreciate it. We want to make this podcast as good as we can, and we just need that little bit back from you guys.
100%, yeah. And just a little bit of housekeeping. So me and you took over I did the podcast with James beforehand. I think it was April last year. And there wasn't any way of putting the back catalogue on YouTube, and just some like podcasty bits. You can now submit a podcast feed to YouTube, and then YouTube will actually backdate those episodes. So what I've gone and done the other day is I've backdated those episodes. Not that they'll be relevant, but it's just because it's all old news now. But it's just a bit of housekeeping from my perspective. But if you want to check those out, they are on YouTube now, which is quite nice.
Great.
Just going to look at what we've been driving. So this feels like it was like last year now, but it was only a few weeks ago. I had a i5 M60, the BMW i5 M60, big saloon car, massive thing. It's like 5 meters long or something stupid. Had that for about 3 days. That was absolutely incredible. I love that car. Really, really good. The bit I was particularly impressed with, I don't know if I told you this, but the charging on it. Wait on to drop it back off at the headquarters down in Farnborough. Pulled in at Reading services. Had 8% battery. Used the Tesla charger, the V4s. Plugged it in, went for a wee, came back. 11 minutes later, the car had gone from 8% to having, I think, like 6 miles of range, or something stupid, but up to 140 miles of range in 11 minutes.
That's incredible.
It's just amazing. And then if you've got a BMW or Mini, I think they all work the same way. The detail on the app for the car is just like so in depth about the charging curve of the car, what time you plugged it in, where you plugged it in, what charger and stuff. So the charging curve was at 205 kilowatts basically the entire time, and I didn't have to wait for it. So I just came back. So, it's actually ready to go now, and then unplugged it. That's the example of how it should all work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did York with the family in the Tesla the other week, and I pulled in at, where was it? It was just off the motorway at Mansfield, and it was like a designer outlet place. And again, we were down quite low, bearing in mind we had to get back to Bournemouth area.
Yeah.
It's something like early 20s of range left. And I plugged it in, V4 charger, plugged it in there, and the app sent me a warning after 20 minutes to say I was almost at 100%. So I need to probably get back to the car because I might get sort of overstayed charges otherwise.
Yeah.
And pulled in. There were only 2 free when we pulled in, but there were 2 free.
Yep.
And someone else was literally driving in as I went to get mine. So I just knocked on the window and said, I'm now moving. So, pull in here. And it was 22 minutes to go from, I don't know, early 20% to 100%. Not even up to 80, but because it's not one of those super busy sites, it actually lets you go to 100. Obviously, my car's LFP, so you can go to 100. And you just think, if only it was all this simple, and if people actually understood this, we'd stop hearing quite so much of the nonsense. By the way, I had that car since the 1st of September or 3rd of September, and it's the 4th time I've used a public charger.
Yeah, definitely. And the Tesla ones are so, like, if you've got the membership thing, if you've got a Tesla as well, I think it's even cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's just so much cheaper than anyone else. I took a photo and put it on Twitter as well. But this one had grid. It's the one where they've got the grid serve opposite the Tesla ones. No one was using the grid serve ones. There was just people on the Tesla ones, which is just. I think they'll realize eventually that those particular sites, the Tesla ones, are cheaper. So.
I mean, I paid 35p on that charge.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's 30p at home during the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what people would see is like you might say, oh, it's 20 minutes, but I would imagine that 20 minutes goes very quickly when you've got kids in a service station. I'd imagine.
It was actually like annoyingly quick. Because we were going to stop at this outlet place for probably an hour, and we got sort of a third of the way round, and I had to sort of bugger off back to the car, and then go and find everyone again. I guess if you went into a service station and you were going in to get food or something, it might actually be annoying that it's charged that quickly, which is first world problem, I guess, and we should all be quite happy to have that problem.
Yeah, 100%. Just to get back to the BMW, I did quite a few miles in 3 days on that, and just the effortlessness of it. Its performance, the charging speed, the range on it was really good as well. So yeah, I wouldn't particularly choose the M61. I'd rather have the eDrive 40 because the range is a little bit better. You don't really need 600 horsepower every day, do you? So
no, not really. No,
but
especially
lovely thing. I've never used the iDrive system before, but that works like the Genesis. Just got the wheel to navigate CarPlay, which is a lot safer than using a touchscreen. So yeah, very impressed.
I think BMW interiors at the moment, I mean, say what you will about their exteriors, but BMW interiors at the moment, I think, are as good as it gets on a sort of mainstream car. Yeah,
it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it smelled amazing as well. So very nice.
Nice, that's good.
Yeah, there's a video live now on the channel. There's a link in the description as well. And then just quickly, I had a brief half an hour in a Tesla Model 3 Highland, like the new refreshed Model 3. Went to the Tesla dealership near me. Very, very sort of. I've done test drives before, quite often before I had press cars and stuff. It's just you sort of have to sort of grin your teeth and sort of pretend that you're interested in buying the car. Whereas Tesla just say, yeah, just take the keys, off you go. What did you think? Great, we'll let you know, sort of thing. That's a great car. Really, really go-karty feel to it. My brain got used to the indicator buttons within like 10 minutes. It was like, it's actually fine.
That's good to know. I've got one for a week actually in I don't know, maybe start of April.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward to that. I think the Model 3 is still like by far and away the most efficient EV, is it not?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and because I mean it's got really, even the standard range one's got really impressive range, and when you think about it, it's got one of the smaller batteries for a car in its sort of class. So yeah, they're always sort of madly efficient. So really looking forward to that. I must admit, if that had been around when I got my Model Y, I may well have just ordered the Model 3.
Okay. Even with the kids, do you think?
Yeah, because it's not that much smaller, and the main thing for us is having loads and loads of boot space. And although you've got sort of more of a saloon boot than a hatchback boot on the Model 3, it's still got tons of space. And I mean, just the frunk itself is pretty capacious. I think you could probably get like a carry-on suitcase in there. Carry-on suitcase sounds like the worst 70s comedy film ever, by the way.
I remember those films. Well,
sorry, I'm showing I remember them well. Yeah, as a young man.
Quite funny. But yeah, I thought it was really good. The only thing I noticed was there was not much space in between the driver's seat and the door. I was trying to use the controls. It was a little bit cramped down there, but other than that, it was really good. So I was quite impressed with that. Could see why it's so popular. Definitely.
Yep.
I saw the car when we did that meetup on Sunday, but you've been driving something interesting as well.
Yes, I've had the MG4 X-Power, which is the ridiculously powerful one, 0 to 62 in 3.8 seconds. And as a performance car, I mean, the performance is unbelievable. The video's already live on my channel for that, and some of the comments in it are quite interesting, so that's worth a look. One guy was absolutely furious that I didn't mention the fact that it's got some crazy rattle or something when you get over 60 miles an hour, because
Okay.
he says that absolutely every owner reports it and absolutely every review says about it. And I sort of said to him, I did a few hundred miles in this car and it didn't happen, so I'm not going to tell you it did. And then he came back with, "Whoa, it's a press car," but furious. The general consensus seemed to be the same one that I had, which is I probably wouldn't buy it. I'd probably go for the extended range version, which came out at the same time. It's the same price.
Yeah.
The extended range version is rear wheel drive as opposed to all wheel drive. And I actually really like the MG4 as a rear wheel drive car. It's quite a short wheelbase, rear wheel drive, plenty of power, and it's a good fun thing to drive. There are certainly areas where they could have spent their money a bit better. Like the software is very buggy. I couldn't connect my iPhone 14 to Bluetooth, and it didn't work with CarPlay. When it did work with CarPlay, I had no sound. I've since learned that fairly regular resets are required of that system. And certainly, like the interior, that press car I had, and yes, it is a press car, and yes, they do get hard life, particularly the ones that go like stink. But the interior had quite a lot of marks, and it had 6,000 miles on it. And yeah, I sort of feel like if they'd have spent another 2,000, if they'd put that car out £2,000 more expensive and spent a bit more on the interior, and maybe if they worked out some of those software issues, then it would be a car that would be really difficult to turn down. As it is, it's a niche car that's going to, I mean, the performance is incredible, and the performance for the price, you are looking well in the regions of 50 grand to get anything close to it in terms of performance. But yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag, shall we say. Very, very impressive what they've done at the price. But yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I had MG4 last year that had 2 instances of the whole system crashing completely. I think once I was driving it, and then all the screens went black. I had to pull over and sort of reset it all. And then when I had the MG5, every time I public charged it, the screen would go black. You could click it and make the noises. You had to press the home button down and reset it and stuff. But just for those software issues to bring themselves up in 1 week, it's a bit odd. I just wonder what it's like to live with, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a shame as well when the car's been around for a while and that hasn't been dealt with.
Yeah.
But maybe it's hardware rather than software. Who knows?
Which is weird because I've no idea. I don't know. You think of some of the Chinese manufacturers being quite technically advanced in terms of what they're doing, and some of the other cars we've tested that from Chinese brands, they seem to be really good. Some of the Aura Cats, the software on that's quite good, I think. So yeah, it's.
I think
hopefully
I think we have to remember that it's a car that will sort of see off many a Ferrari at the lights.
Yeah,
and that's obviously where they've put the money. But yeah, just a couple of £1,000 more, I don't think would have lost them any sales. It probably would have gained them some. Yeah,
definitely. I enjoyed that video actually. I think don't know if you're using your new Pocket 3. I noticed that you had a tracking shot sort of set up as you drove.
I did use the Pocket 3. Yeah. I've actually changed quite a few settings on it now because that's the only thing I'm going to take to Geneva with me. And I'm just going to literally do run and gun guerrilla style, and that'll be that. So I've watched loads of YouTube videos and tried to sort out the settings because
it's complicated.
It's really sharp as well. So I've sort of dialed that down a bit and made the gimbal sort of track a bit slower.
Yep.
So hopefully I'll be using it again today on the CRV review. So we'll see if it looks better or worse.
Yeah, my Pocket 2 is about. I started using it in June. It's filthy. I use it for tracking shots. So it gets all the road grime on it. So I'm not sure how long it will last, but at the moment it's fine.
Yeah.
So, time to get into some EV news. The first one is Arrival, sort of like a bus company. They've gone into liquidation. They've gone into administration. So they're not too far. Every time I drive to Milton Keynes, I see their big building.
Yeah, you drive past, don't
Yeah.
you, on the M4?
Yeah.
Or- Not the M4.
M40.
The
Yeah.
M40. Yeah, M40. Yeah.
Yes, this was on the 7th of February, so early this month. They've burned through £1.5 billion of investment, which is just incredible. They've never delivered a customer vehicle or a vehicle to a customer, and yeah, they've gone under essentially. So it's a shame because we need more manufacturers that are going to make stuff here, and yeah, it's just. Yeah.
I mean, they look amazing as well. I mean, they're delivery vans rather than buses, but and I was sure they had an order for like 100,000 units from, I don't know whether it was like Amazon or UPS or something like that. But I guess they were unable to deliver. They had a really crazy high-tech factory as well. So I wouldn't mind betting someone buys it, because
Yep.
all the R&D they've done and the development in that facility has got to be worth something. And at the end of the day, if someone can buy it for pennies on the dollar, I'm sure they will. So let's hope that sort of sees a second life, because as you say, we need people to make things here.
Yep.
Desperately.
Yeah, it'd be a bit odd if Amazon were ordering, because they've got shares in Rivian, which will they've got their own sort of delivery van in America. Not sure what the plan is with that, but I know Rivian are launching a new truck here at some point. They've confirmed that. We'll get to that in the episode. But I'm not sure what the plan is for that, but hopefully someone like that buys them.
I've just looked. It was it was UPS actually.
Oh, okay.
UPS delivered UPS invested in Arrival and orders 10,000 electric vehicles.
Oh wow.
But obviously, there aren't any on the road yet. So.
Yeah, exactly. Just some little details. They launched back in 2016, so it's a little while ago now. And then there's 170 jobs at risk. Obviously, the news broke a few weeks ago, so there might be some more information about that now. But it's not sure what's going to happen with that. But I don't think there's any other companies that are making that sort of stuff here. Like similar sort of commercial vehicles that electric doesn't really exist. But I'm not sure what their problem was. It's not obviously not lack of demand, but it's just maybe something else went wrong.
Someone's coming back to the UK with an electric van. Might be the new Vauxhall something. Or...
that's it. Yeah, they're going to be making the Vivaro. I think it's the transit size one. The Vivaro E in Luton.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not
as
stupid as I look.
No, not this time. So I think Vauxhall announced they're going to close a Luton factory or something. But now they're going to bring it back, which is really good for jobs and things. So fantastic. There's this piece by Autocar just regarding the mixed messaging around EVs. There was something earlier this month or January that the House of Lords, I think it is the House of Lords, that were complaining that, or they sent out a report saying there's too much mixed messages from the government regarding the transition to EVs. They cited the sort of the toing and froing about the 2030 deadline thing, saying it's not putting much confidence in buyers, and different things like that. It's interesting to see parts of the government complaining about other parts of the government.
Well, yeah, I mean, without getting too political, I think House of Lords is just full of old cronies that sit and sort of bleat like sheep and moan about things. I personally think the whole political system is on its rectum from top to bottom, and I think when it's party politics, you have two parties basically that control more or less everything, and by their very nature they're unable to agree on anything. So you're never going to get decisions made on common sense or balance. You're going to get decisions made on two people or two parties arguing like school children, and one wins. So anyway.
Yeah, and then Mike Hawes, the guy who runs SMMT, essentially said consumers are just sick on the hands and it sends the wrong message, essentially. Not sure what to do with. I guess most people are not too sure what to do with it, but we shall see what happens. It's all up in the air at the moment. So
There's still so much anti-EV stuff in the mainstream press as well, and sometimes you get the opposite as well. Sometimes you get pro EV stuff that's so pro EV there's no kind of balance or consideration for anyone that's not ready to make the jump, and that turns people off just as much sometimes as the real anti EV nonsense. But still, you know, I had my best ever month on YouTube last month. I had 500,000 views on YouTube.
wow,
And I would say 10% of the comments I had on my EV content were about fires.
is that
You
down
know.
or up?
I always think the more successful you get on YouTube, the more stupidity you get in the comments, and the more, I mean, as you know, I've got alopecia. In the last month, I had a comment saying, "I hope your cancer treatment fails." So, you know, but when you get those kind of comments, it tells you that you're doing okay, because the more eyes you get in front of, the more nonsensical the comments become. So,
Yep.
when 3 people watched the channel, they were all nice, reasonable people. So I would say, like, in percentage terms, it's probably up, but not to read too much into that, because
Yeah.
growth equals idiots.
100%. But yeah. Okay. Some more information about vehicle to grid. So Octopus, I'm not too sure. I haven't read too much about this yet, but it's called the Octopus Power Pack. It says the UK's first vehicle to grid tariff, and it's essentially it's a way of selling. If I get this right, it's a way of selling energy back to the grid. Is that from your car?
So, Alex, I'll save you a lot of reading, because I
Yeah.
released a video on this last night, which I would encourage you to watch and leave a thumbs up and a comment and share and subscribe and all that other cliche stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, you keep your car plugged in you have to do at least 170 hours a month. So, I don't know, say 6-7 hours a day.
Okay.
And during peak times, the grid will take from your car, and during the low demand times, it will put the charge back into the car. And the idea is it saves them having to build lots of battery storage facilities for renewable energy. So all these cars being plugged in become the battery storage facilities. You can set a limit to your car, so you can say, I never want it to be below 50%, for example, so that if in the middle of the day you suddenly sever a finger or something, you need to dash to the hospital, with your finger in a bag of frozen peas, I would suggest, you can still do it. You're not going to go out and find your cars on 1%. However, there's quite a big caveat with this at the moment.
Right.
I think it's a great idea. Oh, by the way, Octopus then give you all your EV charging for free if you do this.
What on
but-
Octopus Electroverse?
No. At
Oh,
home.
okay. Oh, at
Yeah,
home.
your home
Okay.
charging. Yeah. So the caveat is you have to have this one specific wall box, which is like a Quasar V2 V2G or something,
Okay.
which costs, I think, $5,000. And bearing in mind, my home charging for the year, well, I think they say on the website, if you do 10,000 miles a year and you're on Intelligent Go, it's going to cost you 170 quid. So it's not a huge saving to you, and you have to have a CHAdeMO car. So it only works at the moment with the Leaf, the ENV 200 van, and the Outlander PHEV.
Okay. So
But it's proof of concept.
yes,
and
of course,
That's what you have to look at it as. It is proof of concept, and Octopus have sort of stood out and said they can say now that we were the first ones to come to market in the UK with vehicle to grid, with a tariff for vehicle to grid. So I think it's fantastic. Obviously, it's very early days, and I really want to see how much that's going to affect all the different types of batteries in terms of longevity. Not because of the speed that is putting the power in and out of the car with, but I think just the battery cycles. Obviously, each battery's got a lifespan based on the battery cycles, and if it's doing that all day, every day, that could, I would have thought, cause some issues. But I'm sure there'll be studies about that, and everyone will be able to make an informed decision at some point. But at least it's sort of a positive step, and shows that Octopus definitely seem to be at the forefront with anything sort of EV charging based.
Yeah. Ages like there was loads of stuff online ages ago about this sort of thing, and you always think like how are they going to do it? What's all the bits and pieces to the puzzle to make that work? And this is obviously one of them. It'd be just interesting to see how this plays out. If you know what I mean, like something. The first thing has come to market already, so I don't think your car supports vehicle to grid, does it? I don't think Teslas do.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think you can take battery out of it. So yeah.
To be honest, I wouldn't do it anyway at the moment to save £20 a month. Not even that probably, but I would guess the worst month I'd probably spend £20 charging my car at home, and I'd rather just have the freedom to plug it in sort of whenever.
Yep.
And the fact that I could potentially be damaging the battery at the same time, or not damaging but reducing its life.
Yeah.
Just not worth it. Even if I could do it with my car, with my wall box, without any effort, I just don't think I would right now. But
no, that's fair enough.
Yeah, but it's early days.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's obviously you could go the route of getting a power wall and doing all that stuff. But obviously that's quite expensive, like six grand or something. Obviously, not many people have got that sort of disposable income to spend on a battery. So if you can use the existing one, that's quite a good idea. So definitely.
I think if you're in your forever house and you're going to invest in solar, then battery storage and stuff, and heat pumps and all that kind of stuff starts to become perhaps more of a consideration. But for a lot of people, it's just priced out at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. So as you mentioned at the top of the show, you're going to Geneva on Sunday. So we got a little preview of. We did a blog post about what we could see at the Geneva Motor Show. So you're going to be the man on the ground, sort of filming and stuff. So, is there any interesting EVs that are going to be on show at the Geneva Motor Show this year?
Yeah, if I think of it, I'll try and record a bit for the podcast as well. But you know what I'm like. I'm old, so I have a very short-term memory. BYD Seal U is going to be there, evidently. Which is the hybrid SUV from BYD. I think it's going to be their first hybrid vehicle. I don't know if there's a fully electric version as well, but we'll see. The Yangwang U8, the unfortunately named Yangwang, which surely they've got to come up with a new brand name for. Certainly for the UK and the US. You can't be driving around in the US in a Wang. It just doesn't translate well. So that's going to be there. That's the £110,000 sort of G-Wagon Defender kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dacia Spring's going to be there. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag with that one, but it's going to, the official launch is going to be at Geneva. Looks quite interesting. I've watched a couple of the videos on that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, looks quite interesting. I personally think it's still too expensive for the fact that, considering the fact that it's quite a compromise in a lot of ways. But certainly a positive sign that manufacturers are actually bringing out much cheaper EVs. And then the Lucid Gravity is going to be there, which obviously this going to be the European launch. I think I was at the launch for it in LA, so I'll probably give that one a swerve, to be honest. And then the MG3 is the other one.
Yeah.
Really interested to see that actually, and they're showing off a new interior in it, which won't be a bad thing to see in an MG.
Yeah, 100%. That Yangwang, I saw a video of that on Twitter this morning. It did like a very, very steep climb up some like off-road track or something. It looked quite impressive of its abilities. It looks quite good actually, I think, in my opinion, but the name's weird.
Yeah. So and 110 grand for, it's really tough, isn't it, when you come to market with a completely new brand and you're charging over 100 grand for it, unless it's Pagani or something.
it doesn't really work otherwise, does it? So
Hmm.
yeah, that should be quite interesting. So stay tuned to the Not a Guru channel, and obviously there'll be some content coming soon. So sounds really good. While we're on the subject of new brands, I saw this the other day, which is really interesting. So there's two brands. They're going to be they're imported by one company, but we've got Ceres and Skywell are launching in the UK later this year. Both of them Chinese brands, but the Ceres 3 is going to be the cheapest electric SUV on the market in the UK when it launches in May. So it's going to be 29,995. I think it's £500 cheaper than the MG HS or something along those lines. So it's not much cheaper, but it is a little bit cheaper. But it's interesting. We've got some more brands coming, which is really, really good to see.
Yeah, and then Omada is the other one, and JQ as well, which is
okay, I missed that one.
Yeah, that's also Armada basically.
Okay.
I had a really funny experience actually. They invited me to sort of a webinar, and it was coming from China, and literally in a TV studio or something, doing a presentation on the cars and what the brand's all about and all that kind of stuff. And there was only me on it at first, and they literally just chatting with me. But it's like I'm talking to, I don't know, CBS News or something. It was, this incredible production level all in the studio. Someone else did join after a little while, but they'd been doing lots of these things. But I was expecting kind of 100 people on it, and it was me. It was brilliant actually, and they presented it extremely well. Both look quite interesting. I think JQ is going to be the more premium of the two brands.
Okay.
But yeah, interesting stuff. And I don't know, people sort of poo-poo a lot of these Chinese brands and things, but I'm just always interested to see new things wherever they come from.
100%, me too. I like the look of the interior of the Ceres, so there's a link in the show notes. Looks quite cool, actually.
It
so
does.
I reached out to their PR team, so hopefully we'll get on a launch of that at some point. But there's some interesting stuff in that, so really good. Next one is the ID7 Estate. I think it's called the ID7 Tourer officially. So the ID7 was sort of publicly launched in the UK a few weeks ago, but they've announced the Estate version, which is fantastic because it's what we need. Estate cars are great, aren't they? So this one has got some amazing specs. It goes head to head with the i5 Touring, but obviously a lot cheaper. Massive boot, but the headlining feature is the 86 kilowatt hour battery pack and 426 miles of range, and then charging up to 200 kilowatts. So there's some really, really strong numbers in there in terms of the battery specs and its range. That's fantastic. No prices yet, but most of the industry is sort of debating about 50 to 55k. So that's a lot cheaper than the i5, so that's really good.
Yeah, it looks great actually. But unfortunately, I think it still lacks a volume knob.
It does.
Yeah, which is unforgivable.
Yeah. Not a fan of the interior of it because it's a little bit too minimalist, but
yeah, I mean,
really good.
The new CEO of VW made a big thing about how they're going to give people what they want again in terms of interior.
Yeah.
And I thought it would happen on this, and it hasn't.
I think the problem is with that. I think aren't cars like on a really, really long cycle?
Yeah.
So I think we discussed it a few episodes ago. I think they rather than retool the entire car, they just have to get out what they've got. Otherwise, it's like a massive waste of money, I think. And then
I get it, but
I mean, it seems a bit odd, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I had to say at Ateca the other week, and I mean that's the steering wheel on that is what's been on VW cars for years. It's just slight evolution, but it was brilliant.
Yeah,
and you think you've already got that.
I know.
So just put that back on cars. No one's going to beat you up over making a backward step when the forward one went wrong. But there you go. I'm a miserable old man.
But yeah, that's launching in the second half of 2024, I believe, or either Q2. So that'd be really good when it comes out. But I just the charging speeds on it look really good. It's similar. That's exactly what we need. 200 kilowatt is huge. I think you were saying something the other day about charging speeds and efficiency and that sort of thing. That's the next thing we've got to talk about actually. So
yeah, I wrote a little blog post on it, but it just struck me the other day that we're always talking about the range of a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And what we should actually be talking about is how efficient it is. And you do see that, you do see people talking about how many miles per kilowatt hour.
Yep.
But that's always way down the list in a conversation about a car. Number one's always what's its range. And I personally would rather have a car with 150 miles of range that can charge to 80% in 10 minutes
Mm-hmm.
than one with 500 miles of range that takes 6 hours to charge to 80%.
Yep.
That's an extreme example.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we were talking about that Tesla earlier, the new Model 3. It's got a small battery. It's one of the best ranges, and it charges really quickly. And that's a big thing. When it comes to actually living with an EV day in, day out, and going about all your business in it, I mean, I have press cars most of the time, but
Mm-hmm.
when I don't, I deliberately didn't book any sort of around Christmas and through to January. And we've just been living with one electric vehicle, and we've done a really long trip in it, and it hasn't been a problem because it is quite efficient and
Yep.
it charges quickly. If we'd have had something else, something that can only charge to 100 kilowatt, it's not particularly efficient, it's doing under 3 miles per kilowatt hour, it would have been a pain in the backside, probably.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be much more focus on that rather than simply putting larger and larger batteries in cars, because larger batteries are only going to increase the price. Where if we can make them more efficient and get battery size down, you can have much cheaper new vehicles.
Yeah, 100%. I remember people. I've seen some tweets recently about the Mini E, the old one. I think that it gets over 4 miles per kilowatt hour, maybe 4.5. Sometimes people have had out of that. It's incredible. That's a good example of a car that has got really, really good efficiency, but not a very big battery.
What's the charging speed like on that?
I don't know off the top of my head, actually. But yeah, I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast before, but I was filming something with the Genesis last year, and I ran into this guy who had a Mini E, and he was telling me like he did a marketing thing with Mini themselves. Like they used him as a what do they call it, like a customer example sort of thing. But
Yep.
he's driven his Mini from Wales to Edinburgh like in one go before, and it just wasn't an issue. It's so efficient and different things. So, but yeah, I'm not sure what the charging speed on that is. It's not huge, but I think it's pretty good at the same time. So, but yeah. Speaking of the Mini, actually, when I went to drop off the i5, they had a load of the new Mini electrics in the car park. Like they had
really?
They had the John Cooper Works one that was uncovered, so I managed to have a look through the window and stuff. Looked like insane. Looks so cool. The electric one, but which is odd to me because the John Cooper Works was meant to be like a hot hatch, but it's just looking at the specs online. It's just a trim.
Yeah. I would have expected that to certainly have a bit more performance and probably a bit less battery range. But yeah, it seems a little bit odd.
Yeah.
But I guess they think that the standard car's got enough performance as it is.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they're planning on doing some sort of interesting launch, because they had an original Austin Mini in the car park that was like mint condition. They had the Countryman's. They had also like the Bogo Classic Mini Electric, like the very, very basic one that was there. So there's some interesting stuff in that car park. But yeah,
I'm going to in a couple of weeks. Got the drive day for the iX2.
Yep.
So that'd be interesting, and the new Mini Countryman.
Yep.
So we can chat about that in the next episode.
Fantastic. Cool. That's all good. The link to the efficiency guide that you wrote on your website is in the description down below. And this leads us on to some of the deals we found on Auto Trader. So you found half of these actually. So the first one we've got you found is a Porsche Taycan 4S. So it looks really, really cool.
Yeah. So I mean that's new. They start at 96, but
don't they start? They're 120 grand, aren't they?
Are they?
Well, I was making a reference to the Mac Master guy. It's like always boasting his car costs 120 grand.
Don't do that. Right, this is the thing, right? So a base spec Porsche price, nobody ever pays it because you don't get anything in it. And I mean, I heard a stat once, which was on average, people put something like 38 grand's worth of options on a Porsche. Something insane. and I personally know someone that's put over 40 on one.
Yeah.
And regularly does. He has a couple of cars a year from them and regularly puts that kind of money in optional extras on them. And there are versions of this car going around, no doubt, that people have spent 140 grand on.
Yep.
This one is a 2020 car.
That's right. Yep.
With claim range 288 miles, 44,000 miles on it, 47,000 pounds. And I still wouldn't buy one. I'd still lease one.
They're not very efficient, I don't think, are they? Not massively.
No.
So,
And if you're the aforementioned MacMaster, if you try and charge it to 100% from 95% at a 50 kilowatt charger, it's going to take quite a long time.
yeah.
But then you could make a video being outraged about it, I guess.
Yeah, you should try that.
Yeah, I should.
That's a massive. That's like half price basically, but yeah, really really good.
Yeah, well, possibly a third of the price.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
The next one was the Polestar 2 long range, and it's like the performance. I don't know if it's got the performance pack or the pilot pack.
Pilot
let's
pack,
bring
it
it
says,
up.
yeah.
Pilot pack, yeah. And I had one of these for a week for review, and still one of my favourite cars I've had, let alone an electric car.
Nice.
It's got a real sort of cockpit feel. I would have had one of these instead of the Tesla if it had had a bigger boot and if it had the supercharging network. That's how much I like it.
Fair enough.
Really, really great. 0-62's claimed at, I think, 4.5, but it's quicker than that.
Right.
Significantly quicker than that, I would say. And it's just a really nicely built, brilliant thing. So this one's a 2021. Oh, this one has got a lot of miles on it, actually.
It has,
I didn't realise the mileage was that high, but it's 93,000. But 19 grand, and I'm sure that was over 50 new. Certainly around about 50. But yeah, you could get, there were lower mileage examples on there, to be honest, at about 2021. So 2021 car, over 50 grand new, does everything you could need it to do very, very well. 20 grand.
Yeah.
And that's why I think when I look at the Dacia Spring and the price of that, and you kind of think, well, I could get myself you could get a year-old Corsa for less. You could pay a bit more and get something like this.
You can get brand new Corsa You can get brand new Corsa for 19k now.
Yeah, so why would you spend 17 on the Dacia Spring?
The only thing I can think of with that car is that the lease deal is going to be immense.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly. Although, it's going to depreciate a lot.
Yeah, so used, that's going to be...
Even at that price.
Yeah,
Be interested to see the lease deals, actually, when they appear.
Yeah, well, this brings me on to the next one. I think we mentioned a Funky Cat last episode, but there's a 2023 reg, so 73 reg, which is like only the last 6 months, 500 miles for 19k.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's brilliant. There's quite a few of these for this sort of price, it's worrying and also interesting at the same time. But
I would guess that's a demonstrator because it's at an Isuzu dealership and they've got the same importer.
Yeah.
So
they have.
I would imagine that's their demonstrator. Under 20 grand. I mean, what was it, 32 grand when that came out?
About that now, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You got electric windows all around. You got the only thing it's lacking is CarPlay, which is supposed to be coming soon. So,
but again, last month you could lease one of those for 200 quid a month without a deposit. That
deal was insane.
Yeah, and still, any way you look at it, it would have been better to do that.
Yep. The next one I've got has actually just been sold, actually, but what it was MX. It was a Mazda MX-30, which is not a very, from on paper, not a brilliant electric car, but it has now sold. But this was just under £12,000, range of like 124 miles, but it only had 4,000 miles on it. so it wasn't very many. But I just wonder what you thought about that, because I've never really looked at this car before, but it just hasn't got very good range. I don't know if you know much
No,
about it. But
I've never driven one. I don't
No.
know if I've ever seen one in the flesh.
no, I haven't either.
But I think the reviews when they came out were not great, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
And yeah, I've never really taken much interest in them. But
No.
again, a lot of these cars, that was probably 30 grand or something when it came
Yeah.
out, or maybe even closer to 40.
Probably.
So you just think, well, I won't bother. But when it's 12 grand, actually, maybe it's making a good argument for itself at 12 grand.
Yep.
It's like on those lease deal videos that I do when the Toyota BZ4X was £900 a month. Why on earth are you going to spend that? Because the competition at 900 quid a month is insane.
But yeah.
You get an I-Pace for that.
Yeah.
However, when it's 350 quid a month, it's actually not too much more than a Corsa.
Yeah.
It becomes, and that's how cars live or die at the end of the day, is by their price point.
Yeah. The last one is an honourable mention, because I tweeted out on 3 days ago. It had like 17,000 views on Twitter, because a guy I follow, Graham, he retweeted it as well, because he posts a lot of Auto Trader deals of EVs, which is quite interesting. This was a Honda E for £11,495. It's absolutely amazing. I think I check a load of deals, obviously, for the podcast, but this is the cheapest I've ever seen a Honda E. It had 53,000 miles. It was a 2020 reg, but that sold. I think it sold yesterday. So I'm not sure if the tweet helped sell it, but I'll claim fame to that.
You should.
Yeah.
Well, 17,000 views. It's had enough eyes in front of it.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's completely gone now, but that was just amazing. That deal. The cheapest one now is about 15k for a white one. But I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah.
And it's only gonna be a matter of time before they go below 10. But they need to get rid of stock and stuff. So
That's a car as well that I could see going up in value.
yeah,
Not in the short term, but in the medium to long term. You thinking, God knows how much one of those would be worth in 30 years if you had it.
Yep.
And sat on it, because it was the first. It was a really cool, quirky design.
Yep.
And they are the kind of things that become sort of cult heroes, aren't they?
Yeah. Despite its range, that's one of my favourite cars I've driven ever, I think.
Yeah,
Despite its
I
range.
loved it. I only had one for a day,
Yeah.
but I completely loved it.
Yeah. As I said, I think I said on the podcast, I lived with it for a week. Did 1,000 miles in 1 week when I had it. But just every time I stop and think about cars, that always comes back to my memory. So yeah, try and buy one at some point. But
Life goals.
it is honestly, it's a life goal to own one of those one day. So
You will.
I will. Got the lightning round now, so some quick fire hot topic news now. The first one is a new van, because vans are sexy, aren't they? So got the Renault Master E-Tech. I thought this had a really, really good range on its the headliner for it, because the most EV vans this sort of size don't have great range. I think about 200 miles. The only one I know about is the E-Transit Custom, which isn't even on sale yet. But this looks awesome. It looks quite cool as well. So it's the Master E-Tech, 285 miles of range. It's also going to have quite good charging speeds. I know that Stellantis have made a big effort to compete with Ford recently, and they've improved a lot of the specs on their vans. This is going to have an 87 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is quite big, really. But yeah, and 130 kilowatt charging, which is, I've not seen a EV that charges that quick. EV van, sorry, that charges that quick recently. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that looks quite interesting, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The thing that I think should always be mentioned, like with vans, they always give you the range, but obviously that's the range if it's empty, and it's still WLTP, and we can all pick flaws in WLTP until the cows come home.
Yeah.
But I think they should have to give you a range with the van at its maximum payload as well, or with a ton on board or something, just to give people an idea, because there are lots of people at the moment that could run an EV van, but they know the range is rubbish, and then they consider, actually, once I get all my tools and everything in, or it's loaded to the roof with parcels or whatever it may be, what am I going to get from it then?
That'd be a good test, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the whole WLTP thing needs a bit of revision, but certainly on vans, it seems daft to give you a range when they're empty, because whatever you're using it for, you probably don't want it to be empty.
No. What would make me choose the eTransit Custom over this one is the payload. So the eTransit Custom, the diesel and the electric ones have the same payload. It's like over 2 tons or something. Whereas this one says it's got 1.6, so 1,625 kilos payload. The diesel one's got 2,396, so that's not great. But I guess it would fit a few needs. And the one I can imagine would be the Royal Mail. They've got a load of old Vauxhalls near me. Electric vans, that's all they have. I can imagine this would be quite good for them in terms of range, so it'd be quite good. But yeah, I think Ford are probably a little bit ahead in terms of their payload and their the tech they've got on theirs, but that's pretty cool though.
Just to go off on a tangent, have you heard about Ford F-150s as well, F-150 Lightnings?
I've seen some murmurings on Twitter about they're sat unsold or something. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I've seen lots of that, but I also saw a TikTok the other day with some guy claiming that you could buy a new one from the United States for $6,000 and get it imported to the UK for basically 10 all in, which seems like absolute nonsense. So let's say it is absolute nonsense.
Okay.
But with every bit of nonsense, there's usually like a crumb of truth. So it may be that you could get one extremely cheap and import it into the UK. So if anyone is in the market for an electric pickup and they think, well, at the moment I can only get that Maxus thing, maybe consider that. Obviously, it means having a left-hand drive vehicle in the UK, but who knows?
Yeah, I've seen. If you go on Auto Trader, I've seen one Hummer for sale, the EV Hummer thing, in this country for like over 100k, and I've seen one Lightning for sale for over 100k again. So,
really?
But I think it's been imported by that. I can't remember the name of it. There's a company down in London which imports Broncos and stuff. But yeah, I think they've imported it. But that'd be incredible. I don't know why there's so many unsold. I don't know what the problem is there, but
no. Apparently, the Americans are sort of boycotting it because they say it's actually not fit for purpose in terms of how much load it can lug and hooking up a trailer and all that.
I mean, thought they just use them as cars over there, but anyway.
Yeah, but you do see loads with like a trailer on the back and they're towing another one or something. And obviously, probably the average engine size on a pickup in America is about a 6 litre. I mean, some of them are absolutely ridiculous. I saw one at the LA Auto Show. It was like an F550 maybe, with something like...
Looks like a lorry, doesn't it?
Yeah, was it like an 11 litre diesel in it or something? Astronomical anyway. And also Americans do like obviously buying a new vehicle and then sticking a different engine in it and all that kind of stuff. And you can't really do that with an electric one. So it's probably missing out on the enthusiasts and missing out on those that use them to tow ginormous vehicles and pieces of equipment and things. But I think they look absolutely awesome.
Well, they look normal. That's the thing. They look like a normal truck.
And so you've got that huge frunk, which is something that obviously
party box. I think they called it.
Yeah. But I mean, most pickups, if you did want to go and if you wanted to keep things sort of locked up, if you had tools or shopping or luggage or whatever that you wanted to lock up, it's quite difficult with an open back. Even the top boxes are not fantastic, are they?
No.
Where with that frunk, you've got essentially a massive boot.
Yeah, it's huge. I think you can fit inside it. I've seen someone lie down in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Fantastic. Next one is Shell. Despite all the sort of hopeful people that seem to think hydrogen's going to actually get anywhere, Shell have said they're going to they've shut down all of their fuel stations essentially for hydrogen stations in California with immediate effect. This was earlier this month. It's I guess there's not much to say when that happens. We haven't really got many left here either, so they've they've scrapped plans for new 48 sites. So they had 48 sites previously announced, and they just said we're not going to build those now. So yeah, I don't think there's any market for it. So
I think no, aside from various types of sort of grand scale transport or industrial use, I just don't. I just don't see a future for it in cars, but
yeah,
I could be wrong. Obviously, just because of the inefficiency. That's all.
yeah, that's the main.
Yeah.
Like the speed of which you can fill it up is quite appealing. I think that's why it's appealing,
Yeah.
but it's just not efficient. So
That's the thing that, you know, if you ask the man in the pub, well, do you think electric cars are the future? And they'll say, no, it's hydrogen. And they're only thinking about the speed of filling it up. But it costs so much more to make it because you need to use a load of electricity to make it. And then, of course, you've got to transport it, which you don't really need to do with electricity.
no. Oh well.
And then you basically need a conversion station in the car because
Yeah.
it all ends up
You get
going
lost
into an
again.
electric motor. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned this before. We'll get there eventually. Like I think I said to you the other day, I was watching some old fully charged episodes from like 2010, and the cars. If you look at them today with a sort of a holistic view, they're crap.
Yeah, yeah,
But now we're only like, what are we, 13, 14 years later? It's like they're on their way to being really good. And another 10 years, I can't even begin to imagine what it's all going to be like in 10 years. So
yeah. I mean, we were talking about cars with under 100 miles of range for, you know, silly amounts of money back then.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the thing that gets me as well is the physical space a battery takes up. I think back then, Robert Llewellyn had a Nissan Leaf, and it had a 30-something kilowatt-hour battery pack. And he recently upgraded it. He took it to Amsterdam or something. They upgraded it, and in exactly the same space, it's now like double or triple the size of capacity in the same weight,
Yeah.
the same space. Like that's only like 10 years later. So it's gonna be amazing to see what happens in 10 years. So
Yeah, and probably, obviously, when things start to develop, the rate of development speeds up as well, doesn't it? So that next 10-year jump might only take 3 years.
yeah, because there's more people doing it. Yeah,
That makes any sense?
that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm glad.
I love the look of this next car. So this is the Hyundai Casper. This was, I think, Top Gear did a piece in the magazine or their YouTube channel about this little car that was on sale in South Korea. And they are, South Korea. They're now going to bring the electric version to Europe. So they're developing it for the European market. And I'm not sure how big it's supposed to be, but it looks so cool.
It does look really cool.
I really hope they bring it here. So it'd be really good.
They say it's an EC3 rival, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, it says also competing with the Dacia Spring, which
Okay.
I don't know. It looks more. It looks bigger than both of those, to be honest. But
Yeah, it's 3.6 meters short. It says, it's being sold as a combustion version in South Korea, but there's no planned. There's no revealed date for it, but they said they're going to launch it in the market in France for the end of this year, apparently. So I hope they bring it to the UK. I really hope they do because it looks so cool. And if it's Hyundai, that group, as we mentioned before, the Hyundai Kia Group Genesis, they are one of the leaders in EVs in terms of their technology efficiency and sort of things. So if this is going to borrow even more sort of that technology, it should be quite good, I think.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And then the next one, we mentioned it just a minute ago. It's the Rivian R2. I'm not really sure what's going on with Rivian at the moment. Apparently there's some weird stock, price, the stock market's fallen for it, but not sure what's going on. But we saw a Rivian last year at the fully charged show, the R1T, but they're going to bring the R2 electric SUV to the UK, and it should rival the Model Y apparently, so similar sort of size to your vehicle, but that should be really good.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. On the stock front, I invested about 200 quid in Rivian
Okay.
a couple of years ago, and I think it's worth about 6 now.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think they're doing incredibly well financially.
No.
It's so difficult though, isn't it? When these new companies come to market, and you know you're going to develop and build an electric vehicle, and you're a new company, I mean, it's all borrowed money. You can't possibly do it without going and raising however many different rounds of funding,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just diluting the value every time, really.
Right.
And unless you get massive, massive sales, I don't see how these businesses can do anything but struggle. Tesla were different because it was the first one to do it, and in the way they did it and everything else. But I think it's really tough for companies like Rivian coming to market. But we shall see. Again, they've done so much and established a brand that surely it's going to be attractive for someone to come along and buy if push comes to shove.
Yeah, I think Amazon owns a section of it. I think Ford owns some of it as well. So
yeah,
be interested to see what happens. But we should know more information on the 7th of March about this new SUV. Should be quite cool.
Cool.
Another company coming to the UK is, I think we saw this one at the Fully Charged show as well. It's the Microlino. It's like a little tiny like bubble car thing, like the Isetta, BMW Isetta thing.
Yeah, that's going to be at Geneva as well, actually.
Oh, sweet. That'd be quite cool.
Hmm.
They said they're going to aim...
It's crazy, isn't it? Because, you sort of go in via the front, like you did with the BMW Isetta.
Yeah. They're going to aim for 300 deliveries by the end of this year. But I think it looks really cool. Looks quite futuristic, and I'm not sure if it will go the same way as the Ami. If they're targeting 300 deliveries, it's obviously not many.
No.
But I've only seen one Ami in person. That was around your neck of the woods. But I haven't seen ever one in person since.
Was it in my street?
It was, yeah.
That's the. I told you that guy's got a Porsche 911 Turbo S and a Citroen Ami, and I only ever see him driving the Ami.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
as I said, I've only seen one in person, so this will obviously be city use. But yeah, looks quite cool. Very small batteries. This is really odd. It says 142 miles of range from a 5.5, 10.5, or 15 kilowatt hour battery pack. It must be down to its weight. The fact it can be that efficient. So
yeah, I mean, I know it's officially 2 seats, but watching a couple of videos on it, it looks like it's more 1.5, really.
Yeah.
And there is literally nothing to it, is there?
No. It should be quite interesting. Very quickly, the next one is the Cupra Born VZ. It's like a hot hatch version of the Cupra Born. So obviously the Cupra Born is based on the ID3, and Cupra being that sporty brand version of Seat, they've obviously launched a new hot hatch version. Hopefully this will be what the ID3 GTI will be if they ever launch that. This looks quite good. It says 322 brake horsepower, 0-60 of 5.7 seconds, quickest car based on the Volkswagen Group platform. It says top speed of 124 and official range of 335 miles. There's someone I follow on Twitter, I can't remember his name, but he's got a Born, and he seems quite impressed with it. So I never really driven one before, but it seems quite good.
I imagine it's just the same as an ID3, really, but
yeah. Not much to say about that, but got some nice bucket seats and stuff. So, yep. And then the Dacia Spring as well. So we touched on this in the episode a few minutes ago. This was revealed this week. I thought Johnny Smith's video was fantastic about the new car.
Yeah.
I think whenever a new car is launched and he's at the launch event, I'll go and watch that straight away because it's just enjoyable to watch. No price information on the new Spring yet, but I think it looks quite good in terms of its design and the interior. The old Spring, but the one that was in France, looked a bit meh in terms of its design, but this one looks quite good. But as you mentioned as well, that the specs it's compromised in certain ways, isn't it? Like the charging speed and different things. But I think, not too sure.
Yeah, I'm not too sure yet. It'd be good to go and have a poke around in one at Geneva and see, if there's a bit more to it. But I was a little bit kind of underwhelmed. But yeah, Johnny's video was amazing, and I love Johnny. I think he's fantastic at what he does, and a lot of his videos I watch for him really, rather than because he's that good. And he's just done a podcast which is really worth listening to. So Road to Success podcast.
That's correct. Yeah, I need to watch that.
Yeah, it's well worth a look.
Yeah, that lad who does that, he's got a van
Yeah,
a
it looks
podcast van.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought the way he asked questions. I've watched his Auto Alex episode before. I thought the way he asked questions, it's sort of like, oh, that's how you do podcasts. Like that's how you ask those sort of questions.
I know, and
It's
he's not always asking the obvious questions. He's
asking
very
quite
good,
difficult
actually.
questions. Yeah, it's good.
You need to try and get him on yours.
Yeah, be quite good. Just some very quick headlining specs about the Spring. It says it weighs under a ton, which is incredible for an EV. 26.8 kilowatt battery pack, range of 137 miles. I don't think there's a heat pump, so I'm not sure how it's going to fare up in the winter. But the thing that makes this a city car is its charging speed. So it takes 11 kilowatt AC and then up to 30 kilowatts DC for the public chargers. But as you've proven, a guy who has an EV with quite good range, the amount of time you charge at public chargers is quite small. And I imagine if you don't take the Spring outside of cities and stuff or the local area, I think you'll be fine. It's more of a second car, so that's how Dacia sell it as well. They sell it as a second car, so sweet. The very, very last thing, I think me and you are quite fond of Genesis, and I'm glad they're concentrating on the UK a bit more. There's this piece from Autocar. It says Genesis taps 90% of the UK market with expanded dealer network. So it says they've appointed 6 retail partners as it looks to boost UK sales. Because currently they've only got those 3 sort of boutique, like luxury watch stores. Essentially, that's what they're like. They remind me of watch stores. There's one in Scotland, one in London, there's one somewhere else. But I'm glad that they are expanding their retail footprint. It says here they've only sold 3,000 cars since 2021, which isn't huge. That's quite a while ago now. So yeah,
it's a real shame. I would love to stand at the doors of every Mercedes dealership and every BMW dealership and every Audi dealership and say to the people that are going in there, especially if they're going to look at sort of the more kind of luxurious end of those brands. I'd just love to say to them, please just go and test drive a Genesis as well. Yeah. And they might still go back and buy the other one because they're more familiar with the badge and they feel like it's got a bit more prestige to it or something. But they are such good cars, and they really do compete with some of the best things out there in the market. Yeah. And we were talking about software in cars earlier. The Genesis vehicles, the software is probably the absolute best I've ever seen on a vehicle. In terms of its usability, the speed and the way it all works is great. And that whole, the 800 volt charging capability and all that kind of stuff, it's ahead of the game against quite a lot of the more established brands. Oh, I 100% agree. We've gone quite long on this episode. We're already at 1 hour and 15, so we're going to call it a day there. Thanks for listening or watching this episode of the Charging Status podcast. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes. Thanks again, Jim, for joining me on this show. Where can people find you online? Go to my website, naughtaguru.co.uk. I'm on Instagram at naughtagurujim, and I'm on the artist formerly known as Twitter at naughtaguru3. Awesome. Yeah, I sometimes call it X, but I feel a bit weird calling it that, so... I'm going to call it Twitter forever. That's going to be the hill that I'm going to die on. You can find The Interface at theinterface.uk. Links are in the show notes. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.